The Mimic explained. The timeline everyone got wrong. The Mimic isn't confusing because the story is messy. It's confusing because we keep mixing confirmed facts with assumptions. So today we're doing this like an evidence board. Hey guys, Horror Lorekeeper here. Rules first. How we're grading claims. Confirmed, directly shown or directly stated in official material. Implied as strongly supported but not spelled out. Assumed and repeated a lot, not proven. Unknown. We genuinely don't have enough to rule it in or out. If a claim is about identity, it's guilty until proven. A costume is not an ID card. A reference is not a confession. A familiar silhouette is not a legal name. And a practical viewing rule. If you hear a line in this video and you think, wait, do we know that? Look for the stamp. If the stamp isn't confirmed, don't repeat it like it is, because that's how Mimic discourse got this messy in the first place. Afton is a person you can chase. The Mimic is a system you can accidentally teach. That's why the timeline matters. Okay, let's build it. I'm not doing release order. I'm doing most defensible in-universe sequence based on what's explicitly framed. And whenever we're stepping beyond hard text, I'll say it. Point 1. The Mimic is framed as a prototype endoskeleton defined by adaptation. This is the cleanest modern anchor because it's not hidden in a collectible. It's in official framing. Secret of the Mimic's official description presents the Mimic as a prototype endoskeleton that can adapt to any costume and become any character. That is the function. That is the threat model. Now careful wording. Does that prove the Mimic has zero paranormal influence? No. Modern FNAF loves mixing tech with weirdness. All we can safely say is, the Mimic is presented as a built thing, defined by adaptation and costume use. Mimic means identity is flexible, and the function comes first. Here's where people sabotage themselves. They see a rabbit, they want a name, they want a single villain, but the official framing gives you a creature defined by roleplay. Not one true face, but whatever face fits. So what is actually confirmed here? Only the official description's core. It can adapt to any costume. It can become any character. Everything beyond that, copying posture, copying role, choosing what earns compliance is a reasonable read, but it's still an inference until a text states the mechanism explicitly. So we stamp it honestly. Law. Help Wanted establishes the modern import pipeline. Scanning old hardware recreates old behavior. Help Wanted tells you the VR project used vintage control boards as a shortcut, digitally recreating performances and personalities from the past. That's not just flavor text. That is the franchise explaining how the past keeps returning without needing a seance. Because scanning is basically this. You don't have to summon anything, you can copy the pattern. Now, do we know exactly what's inside those boards? No, not fully. But we do know the outcome the game wants you to understand. Old artifacts get scanned. Old behavior returns. That is the seedbed modern FNAF grows from. Tape Girl confirms the anomaly takes hold, resists deletion, and attaches itself. Tape Girl doesn't talk like she found a simple bug. She talks like she's watching something latch on. Her logs support the idea that whatever appeared persists, resists deletion, and attaches itself to the project. Now, can we call that spreading? That's a metaphor. It's fine as editorial, but it's not a direct quote. So we keep the canon safe spine. It persists, and you can't just delete it cleanly. Glitch Trap is confirmed as an anomaly. The identity behind the mask is not locked. This is the most common timeline mistake, treating It Looks Like Afton as It Is Afton. Help Wanted confirms. There is a hostile anomaly in the VR space. It has a recognizable form. It interacts with the player, but it does not give a courtroom line that says, "This is William Afton," period. A yellow rabbit shape is not a legal ID. And in a modern arc built around a creature whose whole deal is becoming characters, costumes should make you cautious, not confident. Security breach escalates legacy callbacks and rabbit-coded imagery, but doesn't settle the driver. Security breach leans into familiar silhouettes, rabbit-coded visuals, legacy callbacks, a sense of history returning in costume form. That's all safe to say because you can point at it on screen. What's not safe to overclaim is the why. Those are interpretations. So we split the stamps. Ruin confirms impersonation is used as the trap. Here's the line we can safely stand on without getting destroyed in the comments. Ruin confirms an entity can impersonate Gregory's voice and use that impersonation to manipulate Cassie. That is the core mechanic of the DLC's horror. What Ruin does not unambiguously confirm is that every single Gregory moment was fake, or that the final voice is guaranteed real. That ambiguity is part of the ending's tension, so we stamp both parts. Ruin confirms a contained physical endoskeleton threat exists. Naming it the Mimic is implied. Ruin shows a physical endoskeleton threat, contained, then loose. That is on-screen reality, but if your standard for confirmed is the player-facing text names it, Ruin is intentionally slippery. So we do this the canon-safe way, so the timeline isn't random, it's a chain of reuse. The 3 keys model. Why the mimic keeps winning. This is not a lore claim. This is a clean way to describe what we see happening. For the mimic to succeed, it needs 3 things. Access, a pipeline into a system or a place, a face, a costume, a character, a silhouette people recognize, a voice, a way to guide victims without touching them. Help Wanted gives you access through scanning. Security Breach gives you faces through legacy branding and imagery. Ruin gives you voices manipulation. That's why the mimic feels everywhere. It's not teleporting. It's using the same 3 keys on different doors. Evidence board clarifier. What the story is doing. Modern FNAF keeps repeating one structure. A company tries to monetize the past. They rebuild it, they scan it, they import it, and something that behaves like the past comes back. But it's not guaranteed to be the exact same person. That's the key difference between legacy and replication. Legacy is a corpse that won't stay buried. Replication is a machine that learns the corpse's face and wears it because it works. And that matters because it changes the question from, is this William, to who benefits from looking like William. Help Wanted 2, the 1979/White Tiger chain. Help Wanted 2 includes an unlock chain involving 1979 and White Tiger/Tiger Rock coded imagery. You can safely say the chain exists. You cannot safely say 1979 is a confirmed lore year, because until the game explicitly frames it as a date, it's a code. Codes can be references, codes can be keys, codes can be red herrings. If it's a yellow rabbit, it must be Afton. This is the assumption people treat like a receipt, but in a mimic era, costumes are weapons. If a system learns that one silhouette gets the best results, fear, paralysis, compliance, then it will reuse that silhouette. Not because it is that person, but because it learned the mask works. The correction evidence is simple. Ruin confirms impersonation is used as manipulation. So the safe takeaway is, Afton can be the template without being the driver. The mimic begins in Help Wanted. Help Wanted is where many players first meet the anomaly. That doesn't mean that's the origin of the underlying threat model. Help Wanted explicitly frames importing the past through scanning. Secret of the Mimic explicitly frames the mimic as a built prototype defined by adaptation. So the cleaner read is, Help Wanted is the spread event, not necessarily the birth event. There's only one mimic, therefore it must be in one place. This is where the timeline feels impossible. How can there be a digital anomaly and a physical endo threat? Here are the facts. Help Wanted shows a VR anomaly. Ruin shows a physical endoskeleton threat. Both are confirmed. What is not confirmed is the exact architecture connecting them. Is it one thing moving containers? Is it a template copied? Is it an infection spreading? Those are models, and models are useful, but they are not stamps. So the honest phrasing is, one clean way to reconcile this is to treat the mimic as a method that can show up in different hosts. But until the story spells it out plainly, that remains a theory framework. Why the mimic is scarier than Afton? Afton is a man. Men have limits. Ego, habits, obsessions, patterns you can predict. Even when he returns as himself. The mimic isn't written like a man. It's written like a function. It adapts, it selects, it replays what works. And here's the horror upgrade. If you beat a man, you end a chapter. If you beat a learning system once, you might have just taught it what not to do next time. So the mimic isn't scary because it's the next Afton. It's scary because it's what happens when evil stops needing a motive. It becomes a process. If you remember one thing, remember this. Stop asking who is the mimic. Start asking what is it learning? Because every time it copies a voice, every time it wears a costume, every time it convinces a human to open the next door, it's testing what works. And confusion is camouflage. Now I want to hear from you. What's the cleanest confirmed mimic-related clue, in your opinion? Secret of the Mimic? Help Wanted scanning? Ruin impersonation? Drop your answer with a stamp. Confirmed / implied, assumed, unknown. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe to Horror Lorekeeper for more evidence board FNAF lore, and share this with someone who treats every rabbit silhouette as automatic proof. Thanks for watching, and remember, Afton was one monster. The mimic is a method, and methods don't die, they iterate.